Revenge was sweet for the Bears on Saturday as a patched-up side travelled to London, came away with a win and made up for that agonising loss on Good Friday. We've got all the reaction and analysis from a cracking day in the capital. This is the world's greatest podcast about the Coventry Bears. This is Bears Necessities. Yes, welcome to Bears Necessities, your favourite podcast about the Coventry Bears. We live at covbearspodcast.com. We're at covbearspodcast on Twitter. You can find our show on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere else. And we're sponsored by York's Tim. I'm one of your hosts, Dave Musson. Joining me as always, my co-host, Craig Cathcart. Craig, we get to talk about a win for a change.
Yes, and I'm absolutely delighted. I'm slightly gutted that I missed the game, but for one reason or another, I've missed the last two trips to New River, and Bears have come away with a win each time. So maybe it's me staying away is helping the team get the results.
Yes, well, we'll have to maybe test that next season, depending on when the fixture falls and how crucial it is in the Bears season. But coming up, we'll hear the post-match thoughts from Bears head coach Tom Tsang. We'll chat about the game and what it might mean for the rest of the season, and we'll have a quick look ahead to this weekend's home, in inverted commas, game against Hunslet, where the Bears of course are moving to rugby for the rest of the season. So we're taking rugby league to the home of rugby union and hopefully bringing a few new fans in along the way. But first, a quick plug for the book, of course. Last couple of weeks before the pre-orders close, get over to covbearspodcast.com/book. For those who are perhaps new to the podcast or have forgotten, the book is one I've written about last season, which was the Bears' 20th anniversary season, and all of the profits are being split between the Bears and Rugby League Cares, who are a tremendous charity, and I'm quite pleased with it. Go and order it, covbearspodcast.com/book. It's only £10. If you're coming to any of the Bears home games in the remainder of the season, you don't have to pay any postage either. And if you're listening from elsewhere, then you do have to pay postage, but not too much, and it's all for charity. So, yes, go over and buy that book. But let's move on to Saturday. And the Bears went down to London with a bit of a patched-up team and nobody tipping them to win. And they came away with a 36-20 victory with tries from Sam Davis, Hayden Freeman and 2 each from Kieran Shearer and Elliot Hall. All 6 of them were converted by Joe Sanderson. And this, over the course of the game, the Bears were 10-0 down, they were 16-12 down at half-time, they were 20-12 down in the second half, and yet they still came away with the win. And even had a couple of tries disallowed in the second half as well, so it could have been more. As you can tell, we're very happy about it, as was Bears head coach Tom Tsang. Here's what he had to say when I caught up with him the day after the match. So, Tom, you went into Saturday's game on the back of a tough series of results, bit of the patched up team, obviously wanting revenge from when the Skolars came to Coventry earlier in the year and left the capital once again with a victory. You must be delighted with the shift your lads put in.
Yeah, very, very happy, and I know it's sort of the usual thing to do, but I've got to give the players in our squad a lot of credit and a lot of and put the sort of the positive and the praise on their shoulders. Really, I'm sure we would have been pretty heavily tipped to lose that game, which is probably understandable for anyone that isn't aware of the amount of hard work that we put in as a group and the players in particular. So we're well aware of how hard we work, and we know that when things go well for us, that we can beat any team in this division. We've shown it already, and obviously the weekend was just another example of that.
Yeah, and I mean, watching on from afar from Twitter, some Skolars were 10-0 up and then 20-12 up at different points. And again, bearing in mind it was a bit of a patched up team and a couple of newer faces in there as well. That shows the character of this team, doesn't it? To come back from those positions and get your noses in front and then just extend that lead and hold on for the win.
Yeah, it really does. And I think we've you mentioned there's a couple of results in the last couple of weeks that have gone against us, and we really haven't put our best foot forward. And I asked the question of the players whether this weekend could be a defining point for us in terms of really, really showing what we're about and really looking to turn that corner, despite all the things that are going against us in terms of injuries and players playing out of position and things like that. And the guys that are fit and healthy and put their hand up to play all really showed exactly why they're in the squad, not just on a sort of a talent level, but also just the pride and the passion that they have for playing for Coventry was really clear to see, and not just playing for the club, but also playing for each other as good friends. It's a pretty small squad that we've got now, due to some of the injuries and things like that, and people not with us that started pre-season with us right way back, but it's a very, very close-knit group of players now, so you could really see that team spirit coming through, so that was really positive to see as well.
So talk me through some of your standout performers from Saturday's game then. I mean, obviously people looking at the list of scorers will notice Kieran Sherritt getting a pair of tries and Elliot Hall scoring yet another pair of tries as well, so they will probably get some of the headlines, but is there anyone you particularly wanted to single out from Saturday's performance?
Yeah, well, those two in particular were fantastic for us, and Elliot obviously is I think that's 13 from 13 tries in 13 games that he's got now, and to do that at any level is fantastic. But he's been a real standout for us all year. Kieran was great. I thought that we had a real strong base built by him, and a couple of the other guys in the second row. So Niall Flynn, who was the guy who came in on from Dewsbury for the week, he put in a real shift in 80-minute performance in the right second row and did a real good job. Chris Barrett, who's absolutely banged up, he's got probably 4 different injuries, had a good 50 minutes off the bench, and when he came on is when we lifted. But I've got to say the halfbacks really stood up in the game. So Joe Sanderson, who it's only his second game for us, having come in on loan from Hunslet, really sort of took the game by the scruff of the neck and showed that a week under his belt, a game under his belt, meant that he could really push and pull our team into the right places. And then Nathan Conroy, off the back of that, I must say, was probably my man of the match. He laid on at least 3 or 4 of those tries, and was really instrumental in everything that we did well in attack. And to do that playing out of position, scrum half is something that is playing out of necessity rather than through choice. Is by far and away the best hooker in the team. So for him to sort of put in that sort of performance in a position he's not used to, it really shows how talented he is. So I think those are the guys that really stood out. But I've got to say that it really was one of those sort of 17-man performances where everybody played a big part in the game, and even guys. So we had Errol Carter coming back in. He only played sort of 20-25 minutes off the bench, and though people know him, he's a winger, possibly a fullback, but he played at loose forward in the middle of the field, and he's not the biggest lad, but he really put himself around, and in that little short spell had a really important part to play, because London could have come back in at that point, but he and many others in the team really put the hand up and played very, very well.
Now, Craig and I were talking on the podcast last week, almost reminiscing about the trip to London from last season, which obviously kick-started that 4-game winning run over the summer. And sort of looking ahead at the rest of July, Hunslet at home, West Wales away, they're both fixtures that you guys won last year. Does this result from Saturday almost feel like there's a potential to have that similar springboard effect to what we saw last summer and actually give you the confidence and the belief to kick on and maybe get a couple more victories over the summer?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I think the key word there absolutely is confidence, because the start of the year, obviously, we were a really settled team. We didn't really make too many changes in the first sort of 8 games. Definitely not through the spine of the team. And obviously, it's just the last 2 games, really. I was looking back at it, and the 3 games ago, before the Skolars game, we played Whitehaven away, and that was a really close game that we felt that we were in with a shout of winning. And then we go back up to Cumbria, and that was the first game without Nick Newman, so there's a lot of disruptions and also a few injuries, so we got blown away in that game. And then again against Doncaster at home, lots of injuries, the guys away for the Student Four Nations, and we're still coming to terms with a bit of that change in the halfback pairing. So again, another loss, but an understandable loss. Really looking back at it, so this game really was our chance to put things right, and hopefully now that they've seen that when they execute things well and do the basics very, very well, which is essentially how we won the game. We just did the basics very well. That we can be more than a match for any team, and we really did, especially in the second half, dominate the competition on the weekend, because we had 2 tries disallowed as well. We had another couple of chances that were sort of pulled back earlier on before we could get to the try line, but it could have been a lot more in terms of the points. So that confidence needs to come through, and also defensively we were very strong on our goal line and in certain areas which we'd sort of been lacking in the last couple of games. So lots of areas where we've massively improved, and hopefully now this group of players that we have now, plus guys that will come back in through injury, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we don't pick up any others. It can be the springboard, and like I said at the start of the year, realistically, we know we're not going to win every single game from now to the end of the year. But if we can be back where we were, being really competitive and pushing teams, we will hopefully be able to get over the line more often than not in terms of getting the results we want.
Mm-hmm. And so that next challenge is Hunslet at home, in inverted commas, but it's the first game down at Rugby. How are you feeling about sort of? I know it's through necessity, but how are you feeling about being on the move again and taking the Bears brand and the sport of rugby league to the home of rugby union for a few games?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be quite exciting actually. I mean, in terms of the players on the on-field stuff, it is a disruption and it's not ideal, but it isn't that big a deal. It is probably more of an issue for the off-field team, the guys that are working behind the scenes to market the games and Alan and etc. to make sure that operationally everything runs smoothly. That's probably the bigger challenge. On the field, it's just a case of turning up and going through our usual processes. And we've had some comment on social media saying that it's a chance actually for new fans to come along. We've had a lot of people say that they're going to turn up. So hopefully it's an opportunity, like you say, to get more people in locally from a slightly different area that can get behind us and maybe attract some longer term supporters from the region. But yeah, we just got, as we have done in the past, we've got to try and take it in our stride, and I'm sure the players will. Like I say, it's probably more of an off-field thing.
Great stuff. Well, best of luck for the trip to Rugby to face Hunslet, and I will speak to you after that game. And enjoy the rest of this winning feeling, and hopefully long may it continue.
Thank you very much, Dave. Appreciate it.
So huge thanks to Tom for joining us as always, and it's really nice to get to chat to him about a win for a change. So Craig, you mentioned in the intro neither of us were able to be there, but we were following closely on Twitter, and no doubt, knowing what you're like when you can't make an away game, you've probably been tapping up your sources of people who were there. It's just come at absolutely the perfect time, isn't it? In terms of a confidence boost for the team, in terms of a reminder to that team and to everyone else in the league that the Bears can beat anyone on their day. And just a terrific performance.
Yeah, I mean, especially after the Doncaster game last time out, getting well beaten at home, and speaking to Tom and others after that game, they were really, really disappointed with how the game had gone and that result. And it was, what with the 6th game in a row without a win. Mm-hmm. And despite some good performances along the way, you worry that when a team gets into that rut where they get so many losses in a row that it might be difficult to come out of. But you know what? The real credit to the players and real credit to Tom and the coaching team. I mean, the guys have continued to work hard in training, and they I must admit, looking at, as you say, a patched up squad going down to Skolars, who, they've been a bit hit and miss the last few weeks. They've been in great form all season, for most of the season, and a really good squad, and a squad that they've strengthened actually in the last few weeks. It was always going to be I thought, a tough day for the Bears. I thought they were in with a chance of winning, but to come away with a victory like that and to score that many points in the second half was phenomenal. Some real standout performances as well. A lot of players stood up to the plate and give it their all, and thankfully they came away with the result. And I think, like you said, last season the Bears went away to Skolars, won that game. I think it was the same weekend as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was a platform on which they won a few in a row. So I would just say that this is the sort of the season back on track, hopefully. And I think looking at the fixtures over the next 3 or 4 games, they're all games that are winnable. And with more players still to come back from injury, it's a really good time to get that win. I think it's absolutely phenomenal, the effort that the lads have put in to pull this, to turn that around and get the result. Also, another thing is doing it off the back of that such a demoralising defeat that was, to lose at home to Skolars in the last touch of the game, the last kick of the game. And the lads probably had that in the back of their mind, especially when they went and nudged in front in the second half. And maybe they gained strength from that, not wanting to go through that again. But certainly they've shown so much character. It's not been an easy few weeks. Having those defeats, having to play away from the Butts Park Arena due to the works that were going on there. And players being away in the Student Four Nations, injuries mounting up as well. It can't have been easy even to do training with the number of players missing. Some players, I gather, haven't been able to train much, and then we're playing games. So it's a fantastic effort. It really, really is.
Yeah, and also, it's not difficult to underestimate the loss of Nick Newman as well, because he was such a talisman for the first half of the season. And it's only been that's 3 games since he moved up to Newcastle, and the first 2 were obviously both defeats and new halfback combinations trying to get their linking sorted, and that compounded with injuries as well. But by all accounts, Joe Sanderson has really settled in, and as Tom mentioned in his post-match interview, Nathan Conroy put in a really great shift against Skolars, playing completely out of position but taking it in his stride and just being that leader on the pitch that perhaps is what the Bears have been lacking in sometimes when they needed that more experienced head to guide them through and move them around the pitch. And God, if we can get a halfback in so that Nathan can go back into hooker, then things start to look really interesting, don't they?
Yeah. Nathan Conroy is just a fantastic player, but he's shown that he'll do what he can for the team, and as you said, he is a leader on the pitch. Thankfully, we've had a really able deputy in Sam Davis coming in. He's played quite a few games over the last 2 to 3 years for the Bears. He's just a phenomenal young talent, a really, really good player. Ideally, what you'd like to see is him and Nathan as the 2 hookers, so that you can mix things up during the game. But yeah, Joe Sanderson was phenomenal. Apparently, kicked all his kicks as well. Also, Kieran Sherratt, 2 tries, lots of breaks, big in defence. Jacob Jones as well in a change of position, switching into centre. Yep. He was missed a lot last week against Doncaster, and he's just had a great season overall, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Been absolutely fantastic. Harry Kaufman as well, from the people that I spoke to, was singled out for praise. Yeah. Such a great, just a great all-round player. He's settled in at second row, and he's put in 2 really good performances over the last 2 weeks. Yeah. He's, as I said, there is a reason why he's always in the 17, because he gives it 100% every week. And it's really good to see as well Elliot Hall continuing his run.
Well, I was going to come to a certain Mr. Elliot Hall. That's 13 tries in 13 games, which is an unbelievable return in his first season at the club. And we talk about him almost every episode. Are you at all worried that people are going to notice how good he is, and he's going to be turning heads, or should we just not worry about that and just enjoy it while we've got him and encourage him to keep doing it?
I think, yeah, I mean, that's a phenomenal return for a club near the bottom of the league. He's just been superb. I think can't really worry about things like that. I mean, Nick Newman, clearly there was clubs noticing what an impact he made earlier on in the season. The club made a pragmatic decision to let him go to stand a chance. He's got a very good chance of getting promoted with Newcastle now. And, it was a deal that worked for the Bears as well. Elliot will hopefully be with us next season, but I think I take the approach that if players come to the Bears and put in performances that deserve or that are noticed by teams higher up, championship teams or teams at the top end of League One, then fair play. All we can ask for them is to put in big performances every week, and if it leads to bigger and better things for them, then well done to them.
Yes, I mean we saw Jason Bass scoring again for York at the weekend, didn't we? He's taken to the Championship like a duck to water.
Yeah, and I would imagine when Jason was signed by York, they were thinking, he's come from a League One team again. The Bears, let's be honest, are a team in the bottom half of the League One table. He was probably the Bears' best player over the previous 2 seasons, but they were probably thinking he'll get a few games here and there and maybe go on dual reg to someone. But he's come into that York team, and just like he was at the Bears, he's a massive fan favourite up there. Mainly because of all the qualities he shows. You can stick him in any position in the back line and he'll put in a top performance. He's capable of scoring tries from anywhere. He's strong in defence. So again, fair play to him. I mean, as I said, I'd love to see Elliot continue to develop with the Bears. I would love to hope that we will hold on to most of this young squad again next year. There's some players that continue to develop and get better and better, and the more games they get under their belt, the better. I mean, Elliot's been he was at Skolars previously. I think he played a few games last year. I think was he at All Goals as well, and didn't really get much of an opportunity there. So he's been given an opportunity at the Bears, been played week in, week out, and he's showing what talent he's got. And let's not forget as well, he's a very late convert to rugby league. Never played rugby league until he was 18 and when he went to university. So that's a pretty meteoric rise.
Yeah. The big question with him is, do you think he can keep this up? Do you think come the end of the season we're going to be talking about 20 tries in 20 games, or is that putting unfair pressure on him?
The only thing I would say is he seems to score even when the team aren't playing well. So in the games where the Bears have had a reasonably heavy defeat, he's tended to still score. So I think he'll, providing he stays fit, then he'll continue to score in most weeks, I think. He's just one of those players that if he gets the smallest sniff of space, then he'll take advantage of it. I guess teams might start to take a bit more notice of him. They might be looking to mark him a bit more closely, particularly when he comes into the line. But we'll see what happens. I think the ability's there for him to continue scoring. I'd also like to see, Hayden Freeman scored at the weekend as well. I think Hayden's got a try-scoring run in as well. I think he'll hopefully, like he did last year, finish the season strongly with a number of tries. And if our first choice centres can stay fit as well, I think Cam Pearce-Paul certainly has a few tries in him. But yeah, there's a lot to be positive about now. There is players definitely putting in top performances each week. The pack's been a bit light, hasn't it, recently? I think that's probably been an issue. A lot of the teams in League One will steamroller you if you're not strong enough in the pack. But we've got all the lads back from the Student Four Nations. There's one or two players that are coming back or close to coming back from injury as well. So It's looking good for the rest of the season. I'd love to think that we can pick up a few more wins now.
Definitely. Well, what better place to start than in the Bears' second temporary home of the season? They moved to Rugby this Sunday for the rest of the remainder of their home games, and they welcome Hunslet, who of course we beat on the final day of last season at the Butts Park Arena. So I guess 2 parts to round out the show this week, Craig. We've got obviously the visit of Hunslet. I mean, I don't feel like there's a massive amount to say there. We know what to expect from Hunslet, and we've seen that the Bears can beat Hunslet, and there's no reason why they can't back up Saturday with another win this Sunday. I guess what's more interesting is the move to Rugby for the remainder of the season. It's the whole Rugby League, Rugby Union thing, but it's a real chance to grow the brand a bit, to take the Bears to a different part of the county. And let's not forget, it was only a couple of years ago when that double international header at the Rico was being played. 20-odd thousand tickets, and about 3/4 of those tickets were sold from within Coventry and Warwickshire. So there are people in the county who want to see Rugby League, and this, who knows, this could be a really good fit for the Bears for the remainder of the season. We might get a few new faces in, and if they can kick things off with a win against Hunslet, much like they did with such a great win against Workington to kick off their residency at Broad Street, then it could bring in a load more faces for the rest of the season, couldn't it? It could be a really positive thing.
Absolutely. I think Rugby Lions are a really well supported club for where they are in the Rugby Union pyramid. Hopefully, quite a few of their fans will come down and have a look and see what Rugby League has to offer. I know that Rugby, the town itself, is one of the fastest growing towns in the Midlands, and certainly there will be quite a few people in Rugby who fancy coming along to have a look at Rugby League. And also it's not far from Coventry. Obviously, it's only just down the road, but it might tempt a few people who live in the Warwickshire or Midlands area to come along and watch a game. I'm really hopeful that there'll be a decent crowd there at the game, and it's a really good stadium to play as well. It's top class facilities there, a decent little stand, and a really good place to watch Rugby League.
And it's pretty accessible from a train station as well, isn't it? For Bears fans who are listening, who might be thinking of getting the train down, it's walking distance from, if memory serves me correctly. So no excuse not to get down there.
Yeah, it's so Coventry to Rugby on the train, I think it's 11 minutes. So quick train from Coventry. I think it's about a 15-minute walk. But it's not far for us fit young Rugby League fans, I'm sure. And,
we're going to drive there anyway, so
Yeah, it's going to be a good day, I think. The Bears have played there before. They played in I can't remember if it was a semi-final or a final of the Rugby League conference in the Bears' second season against Teesside Steelers.
So is that a game you played in?
Unfortunately not. I was injured. And I had to watch from the sidelines, which I was gutted about. My brother did play, though, and the Bears narrowly, I think they lost agonisingly in the last minute of the game. But yeah, let's hope next weekend's a happier hunting ground for the Bears.
Well, let's do some predictions then. So, obviously the Bears have lost away at Hunslet this season, but that game, the final game of last season, that home game against Hunslet I still think was one of the most complete performances I've ever seen the Bears put in terms of an 80-minute performance. So, it never looked in doubt, and I think the only thing that was missing that day was more points on the Bears side of the scoreboard. But it feels like a completely different beast now going into this off the back of such a great win in London, and knowing that the week after is a trip away to West Wales, which the club will obviously be targeting, and then a week off. As we said on the show last week, there is a real chance to get 3 from 3 in July now, isn't there? So regular listeners will laugh because we're always confident in the Bears win, but I'm feeling good about this coming Sunday. I think they can do it.
Yeah. I would. I think Hunslet lost today quite convincingly. I think. What did they lose by today? Well, they were playing Newcastle, who are on top form, but they lost 26-12 at home. Obviously, the Bears are coming off the back of a really morale boosting win. Hunslet's heads will be down a bit, or after that sort of defeat. I think when the Bears played Hunslet early on in the season, at that point, Hunslet looked to be the best defensive team in the league. They were absolutely phenomenal on that day. Some real experience in their ranks as well, and some top players, but they've been a little bit hit and miss in recent weeks, and if they come down and have an off day, then the Bears have got every chance of getting a result against them. I'm going to say, there's a lot of omens that point towards last year, isn't there? And I think the Bears will come away with a win again. I can see a sort of maybe 2 tries in it. But we're always optimistic, aren't we, of a Bears win? So,
well, we have to be, don't we? We sort of have to be. It's much more of a fun listen for everyone out there if we're being optimistic. But no, I agree. I think there's a very good chance of a Bears win here, and who knows, a couple more Elliot Hall tries maybe to add to the tally.
Yeah, well, the Bears keep proving people wrong. It has to be said, I on the web forums and stuff that I go on social media this week, the League One show on our league, absolutely no one had tipped Coventry to win against Skolars. So let's hope we can now prove them wrong again, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, like you, Craig, thoroughly looking forward to this trip to Rugby. Start of a new residency to end the season, and we're ticking towards the home straight of the 2019 season, and fingers crossed that the Bears can do exactly what they did this time last year and go on a bit of a winning run. We will be there to see it, of course, and would wholeheartedly encourage all of you listening to come down to Rugby and join us as well. Come and support the Bears in their latest trip on the road. And let's reconvene next week and hopefully talk about a Bears victory against Hunslet again. Before we go, of course, don't forget the book, covbearspodcast.com/book. Go and do your bit to help raise money for the Bears and for Rugby League Cares, and you get a half-decent book to read as well. Subscribe to the show, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you tend to get your serialized audio from. Do tell a friend about it. We're at Cov Bears Podcast on Twitter, covbearspodcast.com. We're sponsored by York's Tim. I think that's everything I'm supposed to say at the start and finish of every show. So that just leaves me, Craig, to say thanks to you as always, and I will see you in Rugby for some Rugby League.
Absolutely, mate. Thanks.